The repair shop on the outer edge of the station was always noisy during the day, but at night it turned quiet, too quiet. Evan, the human owner, often stayed late, fixing engines or sorting tools. That's when he noticed her, the alien woman named Lyra. She worked longer than anyone else, never spoke much, and never took breaks. Lyra was from a species called the Varians, tall, graceful, and known for their blue, shimmering skin. But Lyra was different. Her beauty was faded by exhaustion, and her once bright skin now looked dull under the shop lights. Her hands trembled while she worked, but she kept pushing herself, welding, cleaning, lifting heavy parts that even strong men avoided. Evan had hired her 2 months ago. She came one night, her eyes wide and her voice quiet, asking for any job he could give. He didn't ask questions then. He just saw someone desperate for work and gave her a chance. But now, watching her struggle every day, he began to wonder what kind of life forced someone to work like this. One evening, as the other workers left, Evan stayed behind. He told Lyra she could go home early, but she shook her head. "I need to finish this part," she said softly, her accent smooth but tired. Evan nodded and left her alone in the back corner. From his small office, he watched her through the glass wall. Hours passed. Midnight came. Lyra was still working. Her shoulders slumped, her movement slower. She wiped her hands on her apron, sighed deeply, and then looked around nervously. Evan leaned forward. Something was off. She checked the door twice, then took a small metal box from under the work table. From it, she pulled a few food packs and a glowing vial of energy gel. She hid them carefully in her bag. Evan frowned. Was she stealing supplies? No, she looked too scared, too desperate. Her eyes darted toward the shadows as if someone might be watching her. When she finally left, she didn't go through the main exit. She slipped out through the back alley, her steps light, her head down. Evan's curiosity turned to worry. The station's lower decks were dangerous, filled with thieves and gang dealers. No one went there at night, especially not a tired woman alone. He hesitated for a moment, then grabbed his jacket. Something in his gut told him this wasn't just about work. He followed her quietly. The narrow halls smelled of oil and rust. The lights flickered, casting long, broken shadows. Lyra moved quickly, clutching her bag. Evan stayed a few meters behind, careful not to make a sound. She passed the food district, then turned toward the old cargo zone, a place long abandoned after the last mining shipment ended. The metal doors were broken, the air cold and still. Lyra stopped in front of a half-collapsed wall and looked around again before slipping inside. Evan followed slowly and peeked through a gap. What he saw made his chest tighten. Inside the dark room, Lyra knelt beside a small glowing pod. Her face softened with warmth and sorrow. She opened the pod, and 2 small alien children looked back at her. Their skin was the same blue as hers, but paler, weaker. One coughed faintly. The other reached out to her with trembling fingers. Evan's heart froze. They were her children. That's why she worked double shifts. That's why she never ate, never rested. Every credit she earned went to keep them alive. He watched as she broke a food pack in half, giving it to them piece by piece. Then she gently rubbed their heads and whispered something in her native language, a soft lullaby that carried sadness and hope together. He wanted to step in, to help, but his feet wouldn't move. This was her secret world, hidden beneath the noise of his shop. A single mistake could ruin her. On the station, aliens without legal IDs were hunted, punished, or sold. If anyone found out she was hiding children, she would lose everything. Evan stood in silence, his hands shaking slightly. He finally understood the truth behind her tired eyes, the fear, the pain, the quiet strength. She wasn't just working hard. She was fighting to survive. As he turned to leave quietly, a sound echoed from the shadows, a heavy footstep. Someone else was there watching too. Evan froze. A dark shape moved near the far corner, tall and broad, with glowing red eyes. The figure whispered into a communicator. Found her again. She didn't pay last cycle. Evan's breath caught in his throat. Who was this man? Why was he following her? He stepped back slowly, careful not to make a noise. His heart pounded louder than his footsteps as he retreated down the hall. He didn't know who that creature was, but one thing was clear. Lyra was in danger, and he couldn't just stay silent anymore. That night, Evan couldn't sleep. The image of Lyra feeding her children in the dark haunted him. He looked at the ceiling and whispered to himself, "Tomorrow, I'll find out the truth. But deep down, he already knew. Whatever he found would change everything. The next morning, Evan entered his repair shop earlier than usual. The air still smelled of metal dust and burnt circuits. Lyra was already there, working quietly at her table, her movements slow but steady. She looked like nothing had happened last night. No sign of fear, no sign of weakness. Only those tired, calm eyes that hid too much pain. Evan stood near the door, pretending to check inventory while watching her. The memory of the glowing pod and the small alien children kept flashing in his mind. He wanted to ask her, wanted to tell her he knew, but he couldn't. If she found out he had followed her, she might run or worse, lose her trust completely. Instead, he walked over and placed a steaming mug beside her. "You've been working hard lately," he said softly. "Take a break. Drink something." Lyra looked at the mug, surprised. "You don't have to," she murmured. "I know," he replied, smiling faintly. "But I want to." For a moment, she almost smiled back. But then she looked away, whispering, "Thank you." Her voice trembled slightly, like someone afraid to accept kindness. As the day passed, Evan watched how the other workers treated her. Some ignored her. Others whispered cruel jokes behind her back. To them, she was just another alien trying to earn human money. But to Evan, after what he saw, she was a mother holding her world together with fragile hands. When evening came, Lyra cleaned her tools as usual. The others left, laughing and talking. Evan stayed behind again, pretending to fix a broken console. As expected, Lyra didn't go home. She waited until the lights dimmed and then quietly slipped through the back door again. Evan followed. The corridors were darker than last night, filled with the low hum of distant machinery. The sound of his footsteps echoed faintly as he kept a safe distance. Lyra moved fast, her cloak fluttering slightly behind her. She carried a small crate this time. He could see the faint light of rations inside. When she reached the same cargo bay, she looked around carefully before entering. Evan crouched behind a pile of metal scraps and peeked through. Inside, the two children were waiting. Their faces lit up the moment they saw her. She smiled gently and hugged them both, whispering something he couldn't hear. Then she handed them food and began repairing a small heating unit near the wall. The children huddled together, watching her work. The soft glow from the heater painted their faces gold. But then Evan noticed something else, a shadow moving near the far end of the room. Someone was watching again. His stomach tightened. The shadow stepped forward, revealing a tall alien male in a dark uniform with sharp armor plates and red markings. His face was cruel, his voice cold. "You're late again, Lyra," he said. Lyra froze. She turned slowly, holding her children behind her. "I'm sorry," she said, bowing her head. "I'll pay soon. Please, just a few more days." The man's mouth twisted into a grin. "You've been saying that for weeks. My boss is losing patience. Do you want him to collect the payment another way?" His eyes flicked toward the children. Lyra's heart stopped. She took a step forward. "No, please don't touch them. I'll work more shifts. I'll do anything." "Anything?" he repeated, smirking. "Then maybe you should start with that human shop you work at. I hear the owner keeps plenty of valuable parts." Evan's fists clenched. His breath came out shaky, but he stayed quiet, hidden behind the crates. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. She wasn't stealing for herself, she was being forced to. The man grabbed her arm roughly. "If you don't bring me something by tomorrow night, I'll take one of them as payment." "No," Lyra cried, falling to her knees. "Please, I'll get it, just please don't hurt them." The alien let her go with a laugh. "You better. I'll be watching." Then he turned and walked out, his heavy boots echoing in the silence. Lyra sank to the ground, holding her children close. They cried quietly into her arms. She whispered, "It's okay, my stars. Mama will fix everything." But her voice broke halfway. Evan felt a surge of anger and sorrow. He couldn't stay hidden anymore. He stepped forward slowly, his boots scraping against the floor. Lyra gasped, spinning around. Her eyes widened when she saw him. "Evan, what are you doing here?" He raised his hands gently. "I saw everything last night. I didn't mean to follow you, but I had to know why you were working yourself to death." Her face turned pale. "You shouldn't have come here," she whispered. "It's dangerous." "I don't care," Evan said firmly. "You don't deserve this." "No one does." Tears filled her eyes, but she shook her head. "You don't understand, Evan. They'll come after anyone who helps me." Then let them, he said. I'm not letting you face this alone. For a long moment, she just stared at him, torn between fear and hope. Then she looked away, whispering, You shouldn't risk your life for someone like me. Evan stepped closer. You're not just someone. You're family now. The words made her freeze. Her eyes glistened under the dim light, and for the first time since he'd known her, she let herself cry openly. But outside, unseen by both of them, a red light blinked in the corner of the room, a hidden surveillance drone watching their every move. The debt collector's voice crackled through his earpiece elsewhere on the station. The humans involved now. This just got interesting. The station's night cycle had begun, painting the corridors in dim orange lights that flickered like dying fireflies. Evan couldn't sleep again. The image of Lyra crying in that dark cargo room stayed with him, haunting his mind. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw those frightened children, the cruel smirk of the debt collector, and the silent strength in Lyra's trembling hands. He sat on his small cot, staring at the ceiling, listening to the faint hum of the power generators. His shop felt empty without her quiet presence. By morning, he made a decision. He would not wait for things to get worse. When he reached the shop, Lyra was already there. Her movements were slower today, her eyes red as if she hadn't slept at all. She tried to act normal, but her hands kept shaking every time she touched a tool. Evan didn't say anything at first. He just worked beside her, pretending everything was normal too. But when he noticed the small bruise on her wrist, something inside him snapped. Who did that? He asked softly. She froze, her tool clattering onto the floor. No one, she whispered quickly. Evan knelt beside her, his voice calm but firm. Please, Lyra, you don't have to hide it anymore. I know what's happening. Tears welled up in her eyes again. If they find out you know, they'll come for you too. You don't understand how dangerous they are. Then let them come, he said, his tone sharper now. You've been carrying this alone long enough. Before she could respond, a sharp noise echoed from outside, the sound of metal hitting metal. Evan's head turned instantly. He rushed to the door and looked out. A tall figure in a black coat stood near the gate, his glowing red eyes scanning the room. It was the same alien from last night, the collector's enforcer. Evan's pulse raced. He stepped outside slowly, the alien grin showing sharp metallic teeth. You must be the human who owns this place, he said, his voice dripping with mockery. You've got quite a loyal worker there. Too loyal, maybe. Evan didn't answer. He just stared back coldly. If you're here to threaten her again, you should leave, the enforcer laughed. Threaten? No. I'm just here for business. You see, she owes a large debt, and I heard you've been close lately. Maybe you'd like to help pay it off. Evan clenched his fists. She's working every day, double shifts. That should be enough. Not even close, the alien sneered. Her kind doesn't earn much, and the boss doesn't like waiting. He took a step closer, towering over Evan. But since you seem to care, maybe we can make a deal. You pay half her debt and she keeps her children. Don't pay. And they belong to us, Evan's jaw tightened. You touch them and I swear, the alien chuckled darkly. You humans and your emotions. Always making promises you can't keep. At that moment, Lyra appeared at the doorway, her eyes wide with fear. Please stop, she cried, stepping between them. I'll work it off. I promise. The enforcer smirked and brushed a strand of her hair back roughly. You said that last week, Lyra. My boss is tired of waiting. Evan grabbed his wrist, pulling him away from her. Don't touch her, he said sharply. The alien's smile vanished. His red eyes glowed brighter. You just made a very bad choice, human. He shoved Evan hard against the wall, his hand pressing against his chest like iron. Evan winced, but didn't step back. If you want her, you'll have to go through me. The enforcer's grip tightened, his claws digging into Evan's shirt. You think you can protect her? You're just one human in a galaxy that hates your kind. Do you even know who you're dealing with? I don't care who you are, Evan said through gritted teeth. You come near her again and I'll make sure everyone on this station knows what you're doing. The alien's grin returned, cold and cruel. You think the station cares about her? About aliens like her? You'll find out soon how little your threats matter. He released Evan, his voice dropping to a whisper. But I admire your courage. Let's see how long it lasts. Then he turned and walked away, his heavy boots echoing down the hall until the sound faded completely. Lyra rushed to Evan's side. Why did you do that? You don't understand. They'll come after you now. Evan touched his chest where the alien's claws had pressed. Let them, he said, breathing heavily. I've seen enough. I can't stand by anymore, Lyra's voice broke. You're risking your life for me. For my children, why? Evan looked at her, his eyes steady. Because someone has to. And maybe it's about time humans start showing this galaxy what compassion really looks like. For a long moment, neither spoke. The shop was silent except for the faint hum of machinery. Then Lyra whispered, You shouldn't have gotten involved. Evan smiled faintly. Too late for that. But as he said it, he didn't notice the small drone hovering outside the window, recording everything. The enforcer's voice crackled through a communicator far away. The human's protecting her now. The boss will want to see this himself. Somewhere in the shadows of the station, plans were already being made. Plans that would drag Evan and Lyra into something far darker than debt. And by the time they realized it, it would already be too late. Morning light flickered through the thin metal blinds of Evan's workshop, but the warmth that usually came with it was gone. The entire shop felt colder, heavier, like the calm before a storm. Evan stood at his workbench pretending to repair a small engine, but his thoughts were far from the task. He kept glancing toward the back room where Lyra worked silently, her head down, her face pale. Neither of them had said much since last night's confrontation with the enforcer. The bruises on Evan's chest still throbbed where those metal claws had pressed into him. Every time he breathed too deeply, pain reminded him of the danger he'd invited. But worse than pain was the fear he saw in Lyra's eyes. By midday, she finally spoke, her voice fragile like glass. You shouldn't have stood up to him, she said quietly without looking up. They don't forget. They don't forgive, Evan sighed, setting his tools down. And I can't just stand by while they treat you like property. You deserve to live without fear. She shook her head slowly. You don't understand, Evan. The debt collectors control half this station. They buy information, bribe guards, even own some of the security forces. If they want someone gone, they disappear without a trace. Her words chilled him, but he only replied, Then we'll just have to be smarter. Lyra stopped working and finally looked at him. Her blue eyes shimmered faintly, a mixture of sorrow and disbelief. You would fight them? For me? Evan nodded. You and your kids don't deserve to live like this. No one does. Before she could respond, the front door slammed open with a metallic bang. Evan froze. 3 tall aliens in dark armor stepped inside, followed by the debt collector himself, a thick, 4-armed creature with scales the color of rusted metal and a sharp grin that cut like a blade. Well, the collector said, his voice deep and smooth. What a nice little shop you've got here, human. Shame if something happened to it. Evan stepped forward slowly, trying to keep his voice calm. You're not welcome here. Leave her alone. The collector chuckled, his glowing orange eyes narrowing. Ah, so the rumors were true. The brave human trying to play hero. Tell me, Evan, do you know how much she owes me? Evan didn't answer. The collector smiled wider. 200,000 credits. That's not just numbers, human. That's ownership. She belongs to me until it's paid. Lyra stepped between them, her voice shaking. Please, just a little more time. Time? The collector interrupted. Time is expensive. You've already wasted too much of it. He looked around the shop, eyes glinting. But maybe we can settle this another way. You've got good equipment here. Nice engines, spare parts. Sell it all and maybe I'll forget the debt. Evan's heart pounded. This shop is my life's work. The collector leaned closer, grinning. Then maybe you should decide which life matters more, yours or hers. One of the armored guards reached for Lyra. Evan grabbed a wrench from the table and swung it. Hitting the guard's arm with a loud crack, sparks flew as the armor dented slightly. The other guards pulled out their shock batons. Evan stood between them and Lyra, breathing hard but refusing to step aside. You're not taking her. The collector raised a hand, signaling them to stop. Interesting, he said slowly. Humans are usually cowards. But you, he smirked. You're either brave or stupid. Maybe both, Evan muttered. The collector laughed, a low, rumbling sound that filled the room. Fine, you want to play hero? Let's make a deal. Bring me the credits by tomorrow night, or I'll take her children instead. You have my word I'll keep them safe, at least until I sell them. Lyra gasped, stepping forward. No, please, not them. But the collector ignored her, staring straight into Evan's eyes. One night, human. That's all you get. Then he turned to his guards. Let's go. As they left, the sound of their boots echoed through the corridors like thunder. The moment the door closed, Lyra fell to her knees, shaking. Evan knelt beside her. "He's bluffing," Evan said, though his voice didn't sound convinced. "No," Lyra whispered. "He never bluffs. If we don't pay, he'll take them." Her voice broke. Evan placed a hand on her shoulder. "Then I'll get the money somehow." She looked up at him, her tears shining under the dim lights. "You can't, that's too much. You'll lose everything." "I already decided," Evan said firmly. "If losing everything means saving you and your kids, then it's worth it." She stared at him for a long moment, unable to speak. Then she whispered, "Why would you do this?" Evan smiled weakly. "Because sometimes doing the right thing is the only thing left." That night, while Lyra hid with her children in the cargo bay, Evan returned to his empty shop. He walked around slowly, touching the old tools, the worn-out counters, the shelves filled with memories. Everything he owned, everything he built with his own hands, he was ready to give it up. He turned off the lights one last time and whispered to the silent room, "You were my home once." But now it's her turn. Outside, unseen in the shadows, the collector's drone hovered silently, recording every move. The next day would decide everything: his future, her freedom, and maybe both their lives. The next morning began with silence, the kind of silence that felt heavy, as if the air itself knew something terrible was about to happen. Evan hadn't slept at all. He sat at his workbench staring at the old photograph of himself when he first opened the shop, smiling, hopeful, full of dreams. Now that same shop felt like a cage. Every sound of metal clanging or machinery humming reminded him of what he was about to lose. He took a deep breath and looked around one last time. Every tool, every machine, every bolt and wire carried a story. But Lyra's tears, her shaking hands, and the frightened faces of her children haunted him far more. Those images had burned deep into his mind. When the clock struck 10, Evan stood and began loading items into a small cargo crate. He sorted through valuable tools, high-grade parts, and rare energy modules, the kind collectors paid fortunes for. His hands trembled as he worked. Each piece he packed meant one less part of his life, but one step closer to saving hers. By noon, the shop was half empty. His longtime friend, Roan, a burly human engineer, entered, looking puzzled. "Evan, what in the stars are you doing?" "You're stripping your own shop." Evan looked up briefly. "I'm selling it," Roan froze. "Selling? Are you out of your mind? This place is your life." Evan smiled weakly. It was my life," Roan frowned. "Is this about that alien woman? The one who works for you?" Evan didn't answer right away. He just kept packing the crate. "She has children, Roan. The debt collectors will take them if I don't pay by tonight." Roan swore under his breath. "You can't fight those people. They own everything here." "I'm not fighting," Evan said, his voice calm but steady. "I'm paying. Whatever it takes." Roan sighed deeply, running a hand through his hair. "You're crazy, you know that? You'll have nothing left." Evan met his eyes. "Better I lose everything than live knowing I could have saved someone and didn't." Roan stared at him for a long moment, then shook his head and helped lift one of the heavier crates. "You've got a death wish, my friend. But it's a good one." Hours later, Evan arrived at the trading district, a place filled with shouting merchants, flickering neon lights, and the constant hiss of steam. He found a trader he knew, a gray-skinned alien with long fingers and sharp eyes. "Evan," the trader said, surprised. "You never sell." "What's this about?" "Quick sale," Evan replied. "Everything must go." The trader examined the items with a hungry look. "You'll get half price if you rush it." "I don't have time to argue," Evan said firmly. "Take it all." Within an hour, the credits transferred into his account. Barely enough, but it would have to do. He didn't care about the loss. He just wanted to reach Lyra before the deadline. As he left the market, a faint buzz followed him. He turned sharply but saw nothing, just shadows and smoke. Yet he felt it, that cold gaze from somewhere unseen. The collectors were watching. He reached the cargo bay just before nightfall. Lyra was there, clutching her children, fear written all over her face. When she saw him, her eyes widened. "Evan? What did you do?" He handed her a small chip containing the credit transfer. "Enough to pay your debt. You're free." She covered her mouth, shaking her head. "No, you didn't." "I sold the shop," he said simply. "Everything's gone, but you and the kids are safe now." Lyra's voice broke. "You gave up your whole life for me. Why? Evan smiled faintly. Because sometimes kindness is the only thing that still matters in this galaxy. Before she could reply, the door behind them slid open with a loud hiss. The collector stood there surrounded by his guards. His grin spread wide. How touching, he said mockingly. The human hero thinks he can buy freedom. Evan stepped forward, holding the chip out. It's all there. Every credit you asked for. The collector took it, scanned the chip, and smirked. Impressive. You actually did it. But tell me, human, what happens when you're broke and alone? She'll move on. Her kind always does. Evan ignored the insult. We had a deal. Take it and leave her alone. The collector's eyes gleamed. Of course. A deal's a deal. He motioned to his guards and they released their hold on the exit. Lyra and her children stepped closer to Evan, trembling but free. For a moment, it felt like the nightmare was finally over. But then, as the collector turned to leave, he tossed a small metallic sphere to the floor. It rolled and blinked red. Evan's eyes widened. A tracker. Before he could finish, the collector grinned. You didn't think we'd just let our best worker disappear, did you? You've bought her freedom, human, but not your own. Smoke filled the room as the collector and his guards vanished into the shadows, leaving the device blinking ominously on the floor. Lyra's voice shook. He's tracking us. He'll come back. Evan picked up the sphere, crushed it with his boot, and looked at her with determination. Then we'll make sure there's nothing left for him to find. He looked toward the stars through the cracked window of the cargo bay. Pack your things. We're leaving the station tonight. Lyra's eyes widened in shock. Leave to where? Evan turned back to her, a faint smile breaking through his exhaustion. Anywhere but here. Somewhere the stars still belong to people who dare to hope. And as he said those words for the first time in her life, Lyra allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, freedom wasn't a dream anymore. The lights of the station flickered as the night cycle deepened, casting long shadows through the empty corridors. Somewhere deep within the lower decks, engines hummed and machinery rattled like restless ghosts. Evan moved quickly, every sense alert, his pulse pounding in his ears. Tonight they would leave this cursed place behind, or die trying. Lyra stood beside him, her small children bundled in worn blankets, their wide eyes reflecting the dull glow of emergency lights. Her hands trembled as she clutched their belongings, just a few pieces of food, a blanket, and a broken hollow photo of her late mate. Evan glanced at her, noticing how pale she looked but how firm her steps were. Fear lived in her eyes, yes, but also something stronger now. Hope. We'll take my old cargo ship, Evan said quietly. It's half broken, but it can still fly. Once we clear orbit, I can set a course for the nearest neutral moon. Lyra nodded, clutching her children tighter. Do you think he'll follow us? Evan didn't answer right away. He looked toward the far corridor where red lights pulsed faintly, security drones scanning the hall. He'll try. That's why we need to move fast. They moved through the narrow passageways of the industrial deck, the cold metal echoing under their steps. Every creak of the floor made Lyra flinch. Evan's hand stayed near the plasma wrench on his belt, ready to swing at any sound. When they reached the hangar bay, it was eerily quiet. The massive steel doors loomed ahead, and through the observation window the endless black of space shimmered with distant stars. Evan's ship sat in the corner, a small freighter, old but sturdy, its paint scratched and hull dented. Come on, he whispered. Almost there. Lyra hesitated, her gaze flicking toward the shadows. It feels wrong. Too quiet, she was right. The silence wasn't natural. Suddenly a low rumble filled the air, followed by heavy footsteps. From the far side of the hangar, dark figures emerged, the collector's guards. Their armor gleamed under the emergency lights, and their weapons glowed with blue energy. Evan's stomach turned cold. Run, he shouted. Lyra scooped up her children and sprinted toward the ship. Blaster fire erupted, bolts of plasma streaking past them and slamming into the walls. Evan grabbed a fallen metal crate, using it as a shield as he moved behind her. Sparks flew everywhere, filling the air with the sharp smell of ozone. One of the guards blocked their path near the ramp. Evan didn't hesitate. He lunged forward, swinging his plasma wrench straight into the alien's chest plate. The impact sent the guard stumbling back, but another rushed from the left, raising his rifle. Lyra screamed, ducking as a bolt scorched past her. Evan tackled the shooter and the two crashed to the ground. Pain shot through his ribs, but adrenaline kept him moving. He slammed the wrench again and the guard fell motionless. Evan, Lyra called out. Hurry! He stumbled to his feet, blood trickling from his lip. The children were already inside the ship, crying softly. Lyra stood at the ramp, reaching out a trembling hand. He grabbed it and pulled himself up as blaster fire tore through the air behind them. As soon as he hit the cockpit, he slammed the controls. The old ship roared to life, coughing smoke before the engines stabilized. The hangar doors began to close automatically. Someone was trying to trap them inside. Hold on. Evan shouted. He pushed the throttle forward. The ship shot across the hangar floor, the engines screaming. A plasma bolt grazed the hull, leaving a bright scar, but they were faster. The freighter lifted off just as the hangar doors shut, scraping through with a burst of sparks. And then they were in space. The vast darkness stretched around them, stars glittering like diamonds scattered on black silk. For a moment, there was only silence. Lyra stared out the window, tears streaming down her face. Her children clung to her, whispering softly in their native tongue. We did it, she breathed. We actually did it. Evan leaned back in his chair, chest heaving, hands shaking. Not yet, he said. They'll come after us. That tracker he dropped wasn't the only one. As if on cue, the ship's radar beeped. Multiple signals appeared behind them, small red dots moving fast. The collector's ships, strap in, Evan barked, switching the freighter into manual. The old engines groaned as he diverted all power to the thrusters. The ship jolted forward, weaving through asteroid debris scattered near the station. The enemy ships fired, streaks of plasma lighting up the void. Evan jerked the controls, spinning the freighter sharply. One blast grazed their wing, shaking the entire cabin. Sparks erupted from the side panels. Evan, Lyra cried. The engines, I know, he shouted. He slammed a fist against the console, rerouting power from the shields to propulsion. We just need a few more seconds. Another blast struck, rattling the ship violently. The children screamed. Lyra wrapped her arms around them, whispering calming words even as fear filled her voice. Finally, Evan saw it. A small moon just ahead, half hidden behind a cluster of asteroids. There, he yelled. Hold on! He angled the ship downward and pushed the throttle to maximum. The freighter shot through the asteroid field, rocks scraping the hull as it plunged toward the moon's surface. The enemy ships hesitated, unwilling to follow through the tight gaps. The ship burst through the last stretch of debris and entered the moon's thin atmosphere. Smoke filled the cabin, alarms blaring. Brace for landing, Evan shouted. They hit the ground hard, metal screeching as the ship skidded across rocky soil before finally coming to a stop. Silence followed, broken only by the hiss of cooling engines. Lyra opened her eyes slowly. Evan was slumped in the pilot seat, breathing heavily, his face streaked with sweat and soot. The children whimpered but were safe. She touched his shoulder gently. Evan, we made it, he gave a weak smile. Yeah, for now. Outside the window, a new dawn began to rise over the alien moon, a soft golden light touching the barren land. For the first time in years, Lyra looked at the sky and saw not prison walls, but freedom. And somewhere far above the stars they had escaped, the collector's voice echoed in fury. Find them. No one runs from me. But for now at least, Evan and Lyra had won their first breath of peace. The sun rose slowly over the quiet alien moon, spreading golden light across the silver sands. The air was thin, the wind soft, and the sky shimmered with two faint moons still visible behind the dawn. Evan stood outside the old freighter, his hands resting on the railing as he looked out at the endless horizon. For the first time in a long while, there was no noise, no machines, no shouting traders, no alarms, just peace. Behind him, the ship's door hissed open and Lyra stepped out. Her skin glowed softly in the sunlight, its blue tone returning warmth after days of exhaustion. She carried a small bowl of food she had prepared from their rations. Her children followed her, clutching each other's hands as they gazed curiously at the open land. Evan smiled faintly when he saw them. They're getting stronger, he said. Lyra nodded, her eyes soft. They slept through the night for the first time. No nightmares. She looked at him for a moment, her expression unreadable. You haven't slept at all, have you? He chuckled quietly, rubbing his neck. Guess I forgot how. My mind's still stuck up there, wondering when those hunters will show up again. Lyra walked closer, her voice calm and gentle. You've done enough, Evan. You saved us. Now let me save what's left of you. She sat beside him, and for a long moment neither spoke. The silence between them was peaceful, almost healing. Evan finally exhaled and said, "I keep thinking about the shop, everything I built. It's strange. I thought losing it would destroy me, but now, it doesn't matter anymore." Lyra turned to him, her eyes shimmering like glass. "Because you built something better," she whispered. "You built hope." Evan looked at her, truly looked, and saw the strength beneath her gentle surface. The same woman who once worked silently in the corner of his shop, breaking herself to survive, now sat under the alien sun, free. "I don't regret any of it," he said quietly. "Not a single thing." Her lips curved into a faint smile, and for a heartbeat they both forgot the galaxy still hunted them. The soft wind brushed through their hair, carrying the smell of minerals and dust, raw, untamed but pure. The children played nearby, chasing a small silver insect that fluttered like a tiny bird. Their laughter echoed faintly across the barren land, filling the air with a fragile kind of joy that neither Evan nor Lyra had felt in years, but peace was never meant to last forever. By noon, Evan was back inside the freighter, working on the damaged systems. He managed to repair the main thruster and reroute power to the ship's life support. Lyra entered quietly, wiping her hands on a cloth. "The sensors picked up a signal earlier," she said carefully. "It came and went. Maybe interference, maybe not," Evan frowned. "Could be one of their tracking beacons. We'll need to move again soon." Lyra looked down. "The children are tired, Evan. They can't keep running." "I know," he said softly. "But if we stay too long, they'll find us." She hesitated, then placed a hand on his shoulder. "Maybe it's time to stop running and start living. If they come, we'll face them together." Her words lingered in the air. He turned to her slowly. "Together," he repeated, a small smile tugging at his lips. That night, the two of them sat outside under the stars. The children slept peacefully inside the freighter, curled up in blankets. The galaxy stretched above them, millions of lights, infinite and cold, yet beautiful beyond words. Lyra broke the silence. "Back on my world," she said, "we had a belief that stars are the souls of those who never gave up. When I lost my home, I stopped looking at them. But now," she tilted her head back, her eyes glistening. "Now I can't stop." Evan followed her gaze. "Then maybe tonight the stars are looking back." She smiled at him. The kind of smile that held gratitude, warmth, and something deeper, something she didn't yet dare to name. "I used to think humans were cruel," she admitted softly. "I saw how they ruled the stations, how they treated my kind. But you changed everything I believed. You showed me what humanity really means." Evan looked at her with quiet wonder. "And you showed me why it's worth fighting for." The wind carried their words into the night, and for the first time the universe didn't feel so big or so lonely. As dawn returned again, Evan stood at the ship's doorway watching the horizon turn gold. Lyra stepped beside him, her children clutching her hands. They were safe, alive, and free. "What now?" she asked. Evan looked toward the rising sun. "We rebuild. Somewhere out there, there's a place where humans and Varians can start again. Maybe we'll find it. Maybe we'll make it ourselves." Lyra smiled softly. "Wherever we go, you won't be alone." He turned to her, his eyes warm. "Neither will you." The children laughed as the sunlight touched their faces. The freighter's engines hummed quietly to life again, ready for a new journey. As the ship rose into the soft morning sky, leaving trails of silver dust behind, Lyra looked out the window and whispered, "You didn't just save me, Evan. You gave us a future." And as they disappeared beyond the horizon, the golden light of the new dawn followed them, signaling not just escape, but a beginning, somewhere among the stars. Two souls, one human, one alien, had proven that kindness, even in the darkest corners of the galaxy, could still rewrite destiny.